issue was there, so we are just trying to fix it out. Uh, yeah, so we'll begin now. Hi everyone, good evening. I welcome you all in today's session. I'm Nitisha Jain, tax expert associated with Clear, which is India's largest taxation and financial services platform. And if you're wondering whether you should opt for new or old tax regime, which will be more beneficial for you, then you are on a right place. All your questions about the taxation regime will be answered today, and you will get a complete clarity about which one you should go with. So stay connected with us till the end, and when I'm done with all the segments, then I'll take a few questions also. So you can just write down in the chat box at the end. I'll be answering all that at the end. Without any further delay, let's move towards our today's topic. As we all know that the ITR season has now set in, and this is the first year in which you can opt between these schemes. This was long demanded by most of the taxpayers, but it came with a catch of removal of all the deductions and exemptions that were available under the old tax regime. The budget for 2020-21 has introduced a new tax regime which an individual taxpayers can opt for, of lower tax rates coupled with fewer deductions available and fewer exempt allowances available instead of the regular tax regime, where you have to pay at the higher tax rates, but you have right to claim various exemptions and deductions also. So this is the first year when you have to exercise the option whether to remain with the old tax regime or migrate to the new tax regime. The salaried people have right to choose between the old tax regime and or new tax regime, but the business person or the person who are having the business income do not have this benefit. The salaried people, if they are chose, like say for example in this year if you go with the new tax regime, then you would have option in next financial year that you can switch to old tax regime also. But the person who are having the business income also, they can switch to the alternative regime once in a lifetime and not every year. So the new tax regime has lower income tax rates for income up to 15 lakhs, but is that what needs to be focused upon is that lower income tax rates are available only if the taxpayer is willing to give up exemptions and deductions available under various provisions of the Income Tax Act. Since most of the exemptions and deductions are not available, which reduces the associated compliances and documentation, the assessment of which regime holds an upper hand is of the utmost importance. So the salaried individuals are granted an option to choose between the old and new scheme at the time of making their tax declarations to the employer for the purpose of TDS. Having said that, even if any individual chooses one option at a time of making the declaration to their employer for TDS, he is free to change the option and select another one at the time of filing ITR also. So the salaried individuals and pensioners also would be eligible to switch between the new tax regime and old tax regime as per their convenience every year, provided they are not having any kind of business income. But the individuals, as I said earlier, who are having the business income can switch back to old tax regime, but only once in a lifetime and not always. So the new tax regime is different from old one in two aspects. First one is that in the new regime, the number of tax slabs have increased, accompanied by lowering of rates in the sub range of rupees 15 lakhs. And the second one is that all the exemptions and deductions that were being used by the taxpayers in the existing regime won't be available in the new regime. As you can see in the on the screen that there is a comparison table of new regime as well as old regime. So in both the regime there is one thing common, that income ranging from 0 to 2.5 lakh will still be falling under the exemption limit category, which means that no tax will be leviable up to the income of 2.5 lakh. If the income is ranging from 2.5 lakh till 5 lakh, then in old as well as new tax regime, both the tax rates are 5% only. Then in old tax regime, income category from 5 lakh till 10 lakh, 20% of the tax is leviable on that. But in the new tax regime, income ranging from 5 lakh to 10 lakh has been subdivided into two categories. 5 lakh till 7.5 lakh will be taxed at the rate of 10%, and 7.5 lakh till 10 lakh is taxed at the rate of 15%. Then in old tax regime, the income which was above 10 lakh was taxable at the rate 30% altogether. But in the new tax regime, income ranging from 10 lakh till 12.5 lakh will be taxable at 20%. Then income ranging from 12.5 lakh till 15 lakh will be taxed at 25%, and the income which are 15 lakh or above will be taxed at the rate of 30%. So as you can see, this was the criteria and bifurcation of the old and new tax regime tax rates, slab rates. The current tax system is complicated to say at least that, but while the tax rates are higher, there are lot ways to reduce your tax liability also. So if you want to calculate your that which one would be good for you, either I should go for old one or I should switch to new one, and you want to know that what will be more beneficial for me. So in Google you can just type ClearTax calculator, and this kind of income tax calculator of ClearTax will open in front of your eyes. So in this, in whatever age you are falling into, just select that age and click on go to next step. When you go to next step, there you will see that income of salary, income from salary, income from house property. If you are having, there many kind of income options would be there. If you are having interest income or any income, then just fill in that boxes, and when you will go on next step, there you will see the deduction column would be there. If you are having any deductions under ATC, ATD, ATDTA or any chapter 6A deduction, then you can enter that amount, and when you will click on submit button, there you will see a comparison table between the old tax regime and the new tax regime, and in the last the tax payable amount or refund amount would be showing over there. So accordingly, while entering just amounts in this calculator, you yourself can come to a conclusion that which regime will be beneficial for you. So over the years, the government through addition of clauses to the Income Tax Act has given Indian taxpayers over 70 exemptions and deduction options through which they can bring down their taxable income and hence pay less. While exemptions are part of your salary, like the house rent allowances and leave travel allowances, deductions allow you to lower your tax amount by any amount of lakhs. So apart from this, there are several other sections also that let you take your tax deductions on things ranging from interest on your loans, whether it would be home loan or educational loan, to premiums you pay for your health insurance. So these all exemptions or deductions which were available under the new regime, now we will talk about in the new tax regime what the taxpayer has to forego their exemptions and deductions. Here is the complete list of the deductions or exemptions which the person who is opting for new tax regime have to forego. The first one is that standard deduction in which is rupees 50,000 under section 16 of the Income Tax Act. If you are opting for new tax regime and you are a salaried individual, then you will also not be eligible for the standard deduction, which also reflects in your form 16. Then apart from this, if you are having any deduction under ATC of which the maximum limit is 1.5 lakh, then those deduction will also be not eligible if you are going for new tax regime. Then if your employer gave you any kind of meal coupons or some kind of exempt allowances from your salary income, then those will also be not be forming part of new tax regime. Then if you have contributed any amount to NPS and you are taking deduction under section 80 CCD 1B, maximum up to rupees 50,000, this deduction is also not be eligible under new tax regime. Then 80D, in which medical insurance premium you can claim for yourself or your family up to rupees 25,000 if you are not a senior citizen. But in case if your parents or you yourself are falling into senior citizen category, then amount of rupees 50,000 you cannot claim as under 80D in new tax regime. Then similarly 80 double D, 80 DDB, or any kind of 80G, sorry, 80 sections, 80G, 80E, these all will not be allowed under the new tax regime. Then if you are receiving any house rent allowances or travel allowances, then that will also not be eligible under new regime. If you had taken a home loan, so home loan normally has two components, as we know, the interest component, which falls under section 24, and in which maximum you can claim up to rupees 2 lakh, and the principal amount, which falls under ATC deduction, maximum cap of which is 1.5 lakh. So both the deductions you cannot claim if you are opting for new tax regime. Then professional tax, which has been reduced by your employer every month from your salary, and this is also shown in form 16. This deduction you cannot claim at the time of return filing if you are moving forward with new tax regime. So these are the popular deductions which you will have to forego if you are opting for new tax regime. But if you are sticking to old one, then these all deductions will work as usual as they used to be. There are two deductions which you can claim if you are opting for new tax regime. First one is if you tell your employer to contribute in NPS on your behalf, then this deduction will fall under 80 CCD2 and it can be claimed under the new tax regime. And the additional employee cost expense also, this deduction will also be eligible. In these were the discussion about what deductions you will have to forego and what will be available with you. So now, as we all know that some people, like many people, are having some of the common questions about the new regime and old regime. So I'll answer all the questions, all the common questions one by one. So first and foremost question which comes into mind is that can we choose between the existing income tax regime and the new regime every year? So the answer to this question is yes, because this regime is optional and the option can be exercised in every tax year if the taxpayer does not have business or professional income. In the absence of information, it is assumed that you are a salaried employee not having any business or professional income. Unlike salaried individuals and pensioners, you can choose between new tax regime and the existing regime every year as per your convenience. But the individuals who are having the business income and such as consultant or salaried individuals who are having even income from freelancing activities do not have this option of choosing between the two tax regimes every year. So this thing is very clear. If you are having any business income along with salary income also, then too you will not be able to switch between the regimes every year. You should have only salary or pensioner income, then only you will be eligible to switch the regimes every year. Then another questions which come to the mind is that which tax regime is good for salaried individual, old one or new one? So unfortunately there is no single answer to this, and the culprit again is the complexity of the Indian tax rules. Although looking at the reduction in the tax rates, the first reaction would be that the new system looks better. However, with these cuts, someone with rupees 7.55 income will have to pay rupees 25,000, and say who are earning rupees 10 lakh income, the tax saving will be rupees 37,500. But as they say, the devil lies in the details. So for these savings, you will have to let go all the exemptions and deductions which might nullify these gains. So while figuring out whether to choose the old or new regime might look complicated, but if you approach in a systematic way, it is not that difficult to figure it out. Here is what you need to do. First, calculate all the exemptions that you are availing. If you are living on rent, you would be claiming HRA, which is the biggest salary exemption which one enjoys. Apart from that, there are other tax-free components, including LTA, food bill, phone bills, etc. So all these will become taxable if you choose to shift to the new tax regime. Then another point which you should keep in mind is that just look at the deductions that you claim. So as a salaried employee, two deductions that you automatically get are standard deduction of rupees 50,000 and your contribution towards your employee provident fund. In the new regime, you won't be able to claim these deductions even though you will continue to contribute to EPF. Over and above, you cannot claim deductions which are granted against your home loan if you have one, or any insurance policy which till now has helped to reduce any person's taxable income. Now combine these exemptions and deduction and minus them from your salary to see what is your taxable income and what it would be if you let go all of these deductions. So this should be the deciding factor for what regime you should go for. Then another question which normally comes to everyone's mind is that if the new income tax regime is better for individuals with income falling in 20% tax bracket according to the old tax rates. So let's understand this by an example. If a person is having a income and fall income of rupees 10 lakh, so in the old tax regime he would be falling under 20% category, right? So now let's understand this. In old tax regime, say for example, if he's having deductions under ATC, which is 1.5 lakh, then deduction under ATD of 25,000, then he's also having a housing loan of 2 lakh rupees, then standard deduction of 50,000. So when we will reduce all these incomes from 10 lakh taxable 10 lakh of income, then the taxable income which is coming is 5.75 lakh. And in the new regime, we will see that these deductions are not available, so his net taxable income will remain to 10 lakh rupees only. So now we'll calculate the tax on this on 5.7 lakh of income and 10 lakh of income under the old and new regime. Up to rupees 2.5 lakh, it's exempt, so 0% will be leviable. But from 2.5 lakh till 5 lakh, 5% is taxable under both the regimes. So in new and old, 12,500 will be leviable. Then above 5 lakh but below rupees 7.5 lakh, 20% is chargeable on the old tax regime, which is 15,000, and in new regime the tax rate is 10%. So the amount will be 25,000. Above rupees 7.5 lakh but below 10 lakh, again in the old regime it's 20%, so which will be 0. So in new regime it's 15%, which will be 37,500. So the tax payable in old regime is coming to 27,500 and in the new regime it's coming to 75,000. So like you are smart enough to guess that if I am person who is having 10 lakh of income or any amount of income, just calculate all the deductions which you are having with yourself or whatever exemptions you will be getting from your salary income and accordingly take the decision very wisely. So moving forward to the another question, which is that if I want to switch my income tax regime from new to old, then what should I do? So the option at the time of filing of ITR return of income under section 1 of section 139 of the Act could be different from the intimation made by such employee to the employer. This means that one may inform to the employer about the option between the new tax regime or the old regime, and he can still choose to file the ITR no matter what option has been provided to the employer. So effectively, you can switch between the new and old tax regime also at the time of filing ITR. As an employee, if you do not make any such intimation, then employer shall make TDS without considering the provisions of section 115 BAC. So it means in that case the old regime will apply. The employees may still furnish their investment declarations to the employer wherein section ADC and other tax savings can be done. But the CBDT also clarifies that if one opts for new tax regime and the same intimation is made to the employer or deductor, then it shall be only for the purpose of TDS during the previous year and cannot be modified during the year. So in doing so, the tax liability has to be kept in mind as there could be a big tax outgo for many taxpayers. Therefore, it is better to estimate the tax liability under both the tax regime and then intimate the employer and just stick to it. But if you thought that you forgot to inform, then you can opt between the regimes at the time of filing of return also. So these were all the common questions which every person has in their minds. I tried to answer all of them, but if anything, if any new questions you are having, then I'm there to answer all your questions. Just feel free to ask. GK Jago, if no deductions, then new regime is best. Yeah, if you are having no deductions and you are having not high income or slab rate, then yes, new regime will be beneficial for you. You can opt for that. Akash, if you have already opted for new regime in the declaration, but you have many deductions like home loan or tuition fees, then yes, at the time of ITR filing, you can opt for the old one. If you have any questions, write down. You can switch to regimes at the time of filing of ITR also. Sivaram, yes, you can do this. Welcome. Do we have more questions?